Welcome to our Behdini Beginners course. This is class number 10, working on lesson 4, section F and following. So this is page 75. Part 1, the overview of the oblique case. You may be wondering, what is the oblique case? On page 76, here on the right, you can see what the oblique case is and the oblique case noun endings. We'll get to all of this. What you've learned for pronouns, for example, before is us, to, ow, heen or hoon, ow. But in the oblique case, these are the oblique case. Min, ta, we, we, ma, wa or hawa in the dehookie, wan, and then the reflexive. So we'll take this one step at a time, and let's just start here and go in small steps so that you can understand the 5 functions of the oblique case for nouns and pronouns. There are 4 objects and 1 subject use of oblique case nouns and pronouns. You're already familiar with the first 2. In the examples that follow, the oblique case nouns and pronouns are double underlined. So the first 2 that you're already familiar with are using the oblique case when it's the object of a preposition or the object of izafe. So let's look at the first one, object of preposition. So for example, a prepositional phrase is like for him. And in Kurdish, that would be bu, we. And because bu is a preposition, the thing that follows it, the object of the preposition, has to be in the oblique case. So you say we instead of bu-ow. Bu-we is correct because that's oblique. Now, if you want to spell that out and say for Dawood, then you would say bu Dawoodi, and you have to have this ending on Dawood to make it in the oblique case. We'll get to the hows of how to do this in a little bit. Right now, I'm just showing you the what. So this is the over. The second usage of the oblique case is when it's the object of izafe. Now, we've learned izafe phrases before, and an izafe phrase, for example, is like kitabawi. Okay, his book, or book of him. So here we're using the pronoun we, because that's the oblique case pronoun for him or he. So kitab is your head noun, is your izafe, and we is him or he, kitaba we. Then if you want to spell it out, book of Dawood or Dawood's book, then kitaba Dawoodi, and you put that masculine oblique case ending on Dawood. A third example of using the oblique case noun or pronoun is when it's the object of a regular sentence. So remember, the sentence order in Kurdish is subject, object, verb. So this object, when it's regular sentence construction, for example, in an imperative, then you're going to use an oblique case pronoun or noun for your object. So here's our object. English, of course, is subject-verb object, so the order is a little bit different. So the object is it, and it happens to be feminine. So we say weigh for a feminine object, weigh-bina. And then, of course, you could spell it out. And your object could be book. And book is feminine. So you're going to put the feminine oblique case ending on book, which is the E with a hat. Kitebe bina. All right, the fourth situation where you can use an oblique case noun or pronoun is when it's the indirect object of a sentence. So for example, so you have subject, object, verb, indirect object. And the indirect object is always in the oblique case. So with the verb give, this is common. So you give him it, or you give it to him. So him is our indirect object. And the it is the object. And that's feminine. That's this over here. We're not talking about that right now. That is also in the oblique case. But the indirect object, give him it, give it to him. This is always in the oblique case. And again, you can spell it out. So give the book to Dawood, or give Dawood the book. So you're going to put that oblique case ending on Dawood. And that's our indirect object. Kitebe bida Dawoodi. Dawoodi is the oblique case indirect object. Now, the fifth situation, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. It's very doable, though, once you understand it. You use an oblique case noun or pronoun when it is the subject of an ergative sentence. All right, what's ergative? Okay, look at the footnote number 2. Verbs that have ergative sentence construction are all transitive verbs in the past tense. So, for example, eat is a transitive verb. So anytime you say ate, so we ate, then you're going to use ergative sentence construction. So all transitive verbs in the past tense. Present tense of to want or to need. Present tense of to have or exist. So anytime past, present, or future, these verbs are ergative. And so what is ergative? In ergative sentence construction, the verb ending agrees with the object, and the object is in the direct case. And that's just weird. Okay, so let's look at a sentence here. Subject, object, verb. This is normal sentence construction, normal order for sentences. And in regular sentence construction, number 4, right up above, the verb ending agrees with the subject. But in an ergative sentence, the verb ending agrees with the object, not the subject. And that's just a weird thing. The easy way to remember is that the verb ending always agrees with whatever is in the direct case, not the oblique case. So the verb ending never agrees with whatever's in the oblique case. It always agrees with whatever is in the direct case. Here's an example. He wants the book. Now remember, present tense of want or need is in ergative sentence construction. So he wants the book. This verb is just ergative. And the word ergative is a linguistic term. I did not make this up. It's just the term that linguists use to describe this sentence construction, where the verb ending agrees with the object. What is the object of our sentence? He wants the book. The object is kitab, book. And our subject, which is in the oblique case, which is the focus of this lesson, is going to be oblique. I'm going to double circle that. But the verb agrees with book, not with him, not with he. I could say they want the book, I could say she wants the book, and the verb will not change. The verb always stays constant depending on the object. In ergative sentence construction. Okay, let's spell it out now. Instead of saying he wants the book, which is our oblique case subject, we're going to say Daoud wants the book, and Daoud is masculine, so that requires this I with a hat ending, because that's the masculine oblique case ending. Okay, don't get overwhelmed. We're going to take these things one at a time. We're going to go back to number 1, to the object of a preposition, and let's look at the next page, page 76. First, let's look at oblique case noun endings. Okay, so let's review the oblique case pronouns from the gray box on the right. Here they are. So our question word is K, which is who or whom or whose. And the oblique case pronouns are min, da, we, we, ma, wa or hawa, wan, and then if it's reflexive, ho. And then, of course, you could have phrases like this pen, or this book, or that pen, or that book, or these pens, or those pens. And in that case, you use these phrases here, and all of these words are going to be in the oblique case, and they're going to have the oblique case noun endings on them. So you plug your word in here, like qalam. Qalam is masculine, so you use the I with a hat ending on it, and you end up with vi qalami. That's how those work. A noun is inherently in the direct case. So when you look in the dictionary, all those nouns are in the direct case. When you want to make the noun oblique, you add the gender-appropriate oblique case ending. The gender of the noun determines which oblique case ending it takes. So, if qalam is masculine, which it is, then it takes the E ending. If kitab is feminine, which it is, then it takes the A ending, kitabe. If a word is plural, then it takes the A ending. Now, how are you going to remember what the oblique case noun endings are compared to the izafe endings? I like to think of it in this way. These oblique case noun endings have a similarity to the oblique case pronouns. So what's the oblique case pronoun for he or him? It's we. And we ends with an I with a hat. And that is the masculine oblique case noun ending. Same thing with she or her. It's way. And way ends with an E with a hat. And that is the feminine oblique case noun ending. They or them is one in the oblique case. And that in the middle of one is the oblique case noun ending for plural nouns. That's how I remember it. So if that helps you. All right, let's go on down. And just a note, if you have a noun that ends in a vowel, then you're going to use the ending that has a Y on it. So for practice, first of all, pause the video, modify these nouns to make them oblique. Note that some of them are plural. Check your answers in Appendix S of Book B. So for example, kur is masculine, so you're going to put that I with a hat ending on it that you get from this chart right here. Which is feminine, so you're going to put that E with a hat ending on it, which you get from this chart right here. Okay, we'll pause the video, finish this activity, check your answers in Appendix S, and then we'll go on. All right, you've checked your answers. Now, when you did number 13, Señora is car and it's feminine. And what you want to do in that case is put the E with a hat ending on it. But the way that this actually works in Kurdish is according to footnote 4. You drop the final in Señora when you modify it. And then you add the E with a hat. So ipseore. This is a general rule for Behdini. When a noun ends in the is sometimes dropped before adding any izafe or oblique case ending. Now make these names plural. Make these names oblique, and then write your Kurdish name in the oblique case. Pause the video, check your answers, and then come back. Okay, my name is Shireen. So let's go here and do some names together. Okay, so I am feminine, so I'm going to have the E with a hat ending. Let's see, if your name is Peter. Peter. Then that's masculine, so you have to have the masculine ending on it. So you can take any name. Now, sometimes American names don't work very well, or, Western names don't work very well. So, my real name is Cherie. So that doesn't work because they can't pronounce it, but it also, it sounds funny. So I just got a Kurdish name, and you can do that too. Okay, now, the next thing you're going to do is work with the Appendix G chart. So go look in your Book B at Appendix G, and you're going to practice using the nouns above, numbers 1 through 15, in phrases with demonstrative pronouns. So instead of just saying boy, you're going to put them in this phrase like this boy, just like we modeled for you here. We're going to do that with Appendix G. Write some of your phrases with other nouns in both Kurdish and English, and then practice the sentence of bina, bring, So for example, vi qalami bina, bring this pen. Okay, so let's go look at Appendix G in Book B. That looks like this. It's on page 14 in Book B. And you have the oblique case endings here in this column. And then in the first column, you have nouns. All of these nouns are masculine. All of these nouns are feminine. And all of these nouns you can use in a plural sense. Here are some examples over here. Let's look at the first one. Bu mamostai. Okay, so in this case, teacher is masculine. So we're going to take that word mamosta and we're going to add I with a hat. And it comes out Bu mamostai. Let me make that big so you can see it. So at this point, I'd like you to pause the video, take your time, work with this chart, and practice the number 1 through 15 on page 76, right here. Practice using these words. You can write them out if you want to, or you can just say them. If you write them, then you can practice them later with your language helper using Appendix G. So go ahead and practice that, and then unpause the video and we'll continue on. Now we're on page 77. We're going to work on prepositional phrases. As you know, the yellow word list has helpful examples which show how prepositions are used. Study the examples and then choose the one which is closest to the sentence that you want to make. Then check your new sentence with your language helper. So for example, you want to go and you want to say to or with. Then you would look that up in the dictionary, and there are, 1 to 5 or more examples. Study those examples to see which one is closest to the sentence that you want to make, and then substitute your words in. There are many prepositions in Behdini. Here are just a few of them. B or if, which means of or by way of. Bu, which means for. Je, which means from or with or than. Ser, which means on. One little comparison here. Je means from. G with an I with a hat means also or too. All right. If the last word in your prepositional phrase is a noun or a pronoun, it's usually in the oblique case. In the examples that follow, the oblique case pronoun or noun ending is double underlined. Note that some prepositions function as a phrase. For example, znov. They're written as two separate words, but it's a preposition in English. Okay, so let's look at these prepositional phrases. This is probably recorded in your audio recordings, but I'll just go over some of these here. So if you want to say, for example, we're going by taxi, then you could say taxi. And this is your oblique case ending. See how it's double underlined? And if you're telling the taxi driver to go to the light, then you would say butrafike. And here is your ending, your oblique case ending. And the reason you have to do this oblique case ending is because this noun is the object of this preposition. And that's the way Kurdish does it. Of course, if you don't use a noun and you use a pronoun instead, then you have to use one of the oblique case pronouns, bu min. You can listen to the rest of these with the audio recordings. Just a note with pronunciation, b is oftentimes pronounced ip, l is oftentimes pronounced il or l, and j is sometimes pronounced sh. And that it's not written differently in this dialect, but because of the way languages go, these pronunciations happen this way. And this is where you need to listen to your language helper, listen to the audio recordings, and don't just try to forge ahead by reading what's in this book. I'm using standard spellings. Most of the time what you see is what you get in Kurdish, but in these situations, it's a dialectical thing, and you need to listen to your language helper to see how they pronounce these prepositions. Okay, so go ahead and take some time to listen to the audio recordings. If you haven't downloaded the audio recordings, you can find the link from page 2 in lesson 1. After you've listened to these, listen and repeat, then come back and we'll go on. Okay, now we're going to highlight or circle the prepositions like I did here. And you're going to double underline the oblique case endings and pronouns. Go ahead and take some time to do that. So you can use a highlighter, for example, to highlight the preposition, and then you double underline the oblique case pronouns or nouns. Take your time to do that, and then check your answers in Appendix S of Book B. Now that you've done that, using the prepositional phrases above as examples, write new prepositional phrases in Behdini and translate them into English. See vocabulary on page 82. Let's see if I have that correct. Let's go to 82. That's not what I meant to say. So the vocabulary is on pages page 70. I'll correct that. All right, sorry. This should say page 70. Check these with your language helper, and then you can practice saying them. On the next page, page 78, again, you're going to turn to Appendix G in Book B. Practice using oblique case nouns and pronouns in the present tense to be sentences below these. And your vocabulary strips are already attached to your appendix if you bought a hard printed book from me. Don't use the prepositions column at this time, okay? So, for example, let's look in this sentence, sentence number 1. Ava, boo, yeah. It can be a statement or it can be a question. This is for or is this for So if we wanted to use our chart, Appendix G, remember it looks like this. We're not going to use the prepositions column. So just ignore this for right now, okay? Now we're going to try to figure out something to put in this box right here, okay? So ava, boo, then we could say boo mamo stai. We did that before. Or we could say boo kuri, boo kitche, boo bichika, or anything else in there that makes sense. You can even use a name, I believe. Yeah. So you could use any name, any masculine name, Dawood, Nizar, any feminine name, Shireen, Fatima. Okay. So practice those and practice saying them in these sentences. You can write the sentences out if you want to, or you can just say them verbally. If you write them out, then you can practice them with your language helper. After you do that, continue using Appendix G. This time, lay the prepositions column of your vocabulary strips to the left of Appendix G nouns. And this time you can use these prepositions and go straight across. So for example, let me make this bigger. You can go, let's see, I'm going to say by taxi. So I'm going to say if, and I'm going to find the word taxi. I don't see taxi. Let's say senhora. If senhor a. If senhora. By car. Or I could say to or for boo nizori. Boo nizori. Or I could say, like, give it to someone or come to someone. Duff. Duff. Bichiki. Or if I want to do it plural, I could say Duff. Havala. To the friends. Daf Havala. I could say it's from. Shnav. Choshke. Shnav Choshke. Whatever it is from the sister. Okay, so from or with. Je. Je pourrais. Front of. Le bed, so whatever it is that I'm looking for is le bed. CV. It's in front of the apple. With. Legal. Fatima. Legal Fatima. And I chose the one with the Y because Fatima ends in a vowel. At. So the very common one is le mall. Do I see mall here? I don't see mall. Le have. At the month, that doesn't really make sense. Okay. With, I could say, Nick Dowdy. With Daud. Okay, practice that. Pause the video, take a break, and then come back and we'll carry on. All right, part 4, we're going to use oblique case objects with izafe phrases. Okay, these should be recorded in your audio recordings, but for example, Eid Milad Min, my birthday. So here, this is izafe, and this min is the object of this izafe phrase. And so min has to be in the oblique case. How about her book? Kitaba Juani. Okay, kitab is book. And then you say book of Juan for izafe. So here's the for the izafe, and kitab is feminine. So that's why we use And then Juan is the object of the phrase. And Juan is feminine, so we use the feminine oblique case ending here. And then it becomes kitaba Juani. This just takes practice. So, you know, don't be frustrated with yourself if this doesn't come easily to you. Take this one step at a time and think it through carefully. Just know that here we're working with izafe phrases. And instead of using a pronoun at the end, we're going to use a noun. And if that noun is feminine, this is the oblique case thing. Now, sometimes it helps to remember that I taught you izafe first. So that means the first ending is going to be an izafe ending. And now I'm teaching you oblique. So the second thing is the oblique case thing. Just remember that oblique goes with objects. Oblique starts with an O. Objects start with an O. That helps you. So listen and repeat these izafe phrases with the audio recordings. On pages 33 and 34, you studied izafe pronouns, and izafe noun endings. Now study the charts below and compare izafe pronouns and endings to oblique case endings and pronouns. And remember, izafe always comes first in a phrase. the oblique noun or pronoun always comes last. So if you just put you can even copy this, paste it on your desk on a, on a piece of cardboard or something, and put it on your desk so that you can remember that order. So izafe comes first, and then oblique. And here's the comparison: masculine, feminine, plural. So izafe endings are a, ate. Oblique case endings are e, a, and you just have to memorize this. You can do it. This is doable. Page 79. Underline the izafe endings. Double underline the oblique endings and pronouns. So I've helped you a little bit here. This is izafe. This is oblique. Go ahead and do this exercise and check your answers in Book B, Appendix S. Now change the bolded oblique case pronouns below, like men, to nouns or names of people. And again, they have to be in the oblique case. Use your Appendix G and the vocabulary strips in Book B. Write the new phrases in English also. So, for example, we're going to change men, okay? So instead of saying my birthday, we're going to say Fatima's birthday, okay? So let's go to our Appendix G, and Fatima is right here. Fatima, so it's going to get the A ending. Again, on these charts, you have to stay in line. Don't cross this line. So everything that is above that line is masculine, and it's going to get this ending. Everything that's in the middle here is feminine, and it's going to get one of those two endings. Everything that's below the line is plural, and it's going to get one of those two endings. Okay, so Fatima is feminine, so I'm going to just copy Eid Milad, Eid Milada, and then instead of min, I'm going to write Fatima with my oblique case ending on it. And then write it in English so you know what it means. Okay, carry on with these. Check your answers in Appendix S. Or check your answers with your language helper, since I don't know how you're going to change them. And then in the exercise at the bottom, change the bolded oblique case nouns to oblique case pronouns. Write the new phrases in English as well as in Kurdish. Okay, so again, these are izafe phrases. And you're going to take Juan. Juan is a woman's name, so instead of saying Juane, you're going to say Way, because Way is her. So instead of Juan's book, you're going to say her book. You can check your answers potentially in Appendix S in Book B, or you can check them with your language helper. And be sure to write what it is in English too, so that you know what you're talking about. Now turn to Appendix F and use the relationship vocabulary on page 72. Let's make sure I have that right. Yes, the relationship words that are on page 72. And practice making izafe phrases. So what does Appendix F look like? Appendix F on page 12 in Book B. It gives you some examples. On page 13, it gives you the chart. All right, so you can use this. And this time, you're going to use these. Sorry, my mouse isn't working very well again. You're going to use these pronouns, which are in the oblique case. Or you're going to use these nouns, which have oblique case endings on them. Or you're going to use these names, which have oblique case endings on them. And you could use these numbers too if you want to. Okay, so you're going to use the Appendix F izafe phrases chart using oblique case pronouns, nouns, names, or numbers. Go ahead and practice those. And remember to use oblique case endings. That's very important. After you do a few of those, then practice making complete sentences using relationship izafe phrases, and these to be present tense sentences. So, ava, So, ava kitcha braimina. Ava sistera, for example. Check these with your language helpers. Right now, we're going to look at regular sentences using oblique case objects. So when I say a regular sentence, I mean non-ergative sentence. Let's read this here. Again, we're on page 80, part 5, right here. Verbs like come, return, and go are intransitive, which means they never have an object. See lesson 3. Other verbs like take, bring, give, and say or tell are transitive, and transitive means they always have an object, such as give her the cake. In this example, cake is the object and her is the indirect object, and both of them are going to be in the oblique case. Note the locations of the object and indirect object in the Kurdish SOV sentence structure. Also note that in regular sentence construction, the objects are oblique. Those are oblique. SOV means subject, object, verb, and an indirect object if you have one. So, English example, you, or without saying you, give her the cake. Or in English, we tend to say give the cake to her to show what our indirect object is. So in this case, cake and her is going to be in the oblique case. So in the exercise at the bottom of page 80, you're going to add an oblique case ending to the objects in the boxes there. Note that imperatives use regular sentence construction, and the objects are bolded in English. So in this first one, bring the pens, which is plural. So you get the plural ending and you put it in the box right there. Okay, you can do this on your own and check it in Appendix S. And then we have some imperatives to practice this with. On the next page, page 81. Biba, take it. The verb to take is sometimes used a little differently than it is in English. It's also the base of many idiomatic verbs. See Appendix W for more information. So biba is our imperative. Listen and repeat these commands. These are all recorded in the audio recordings. Remember that the subject of a command is the unspoken you, and it is not written or said. The nouns and pronouns, which are direct objects, and the objects of prepositions are double underlined, and they have to be oblique case. Okay, so listen to these with the audio recordings, and you can substitute similar words for the bolded words, translate the new sentences in English, and then practice them with your language helper. Work with the audio recordings on this. And when I say work with the audio recordings, I mean listen and repeat. So when you open up the audio recordings, you're going to hear biba, biba, biba. And that means you're supposed to say it, and then you listen, and then you say it. So you hear biba, you say biba, 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 biba. Every time there's a break in the recording, you repeat that so that you get practice saying it. And just be aware of what's oblique case. All these things that are double underlined, these are in the oblique case. On page 82, change your imperative as indicated and then practice the new sentences. You can check these in your Appendix S and then say them with your language helper. Then translate the sentences. Refer to the phrases on page 81. And then we have a new verb, bina. So the verb, the imperative is bina, means to bring or take. This is sometimes used a little differently than it is in English. It's also the base of many idiomatic verbs. Oops. So listen and repeat the commands on the next page. Again, the objects of prepositions, objects of izafe, and direct objects are double underlined because they're in the oblique case. So page 83, listen to these with the audio recordings, listen and repeat, and be aware of what's oblique case. Here's your oblique case ending. Here's an oblique case pronoun. Practice these with your audio recordings. And again, substitute similar words for the bolded words, translate the sentences, practice them with your language helper. Page 84, change the imperatives, practice these with your language helper. Translate sentences. Check the Appendix S. Practice them with your language helper. Listen and write the missing words. Use your audio recordings to listen to this. Write the missing words. Then you say it. Practice it with your language helper. Then on page 85, practice making imperative sentences with to bring using your Appendix F, izafe phrases, your Appendix G, oblique case nouns, and the vocabulary strips. So it looks like this. So here's Appendix F, G, and all those strips are already attached for you in your books. And you're going to make imperative sentences. So you can say Bina, okay? For example, Fistaqa bina. There's your verb. Fistaq is nuts. Seinike bumin bina. Bring me a tray. Bring me a plate. After class, work on your pronunciation and correct formation of sentences with your language helper. Write 3 of your sentences here. Write the English translations so you know what they are. And then finally, for today's lesson, use indirect objects, oblique case indirect objects. So with the verbs give and say or tell, they use regular sentence construction, and they frequently have indirect objects. These indirect objects are going to be in the oblique case. Note that the direct object of tell with the verb to say or tell is the part of the sentence that's in quotations. Okay, we'll get to that down here on number 4, number 5. So for example, in number 1, you, singular, give the books to your aunt. Okay, let's look at that. The subject is you, too. But we don't say it because it's an imperative. So the books is the object. Kitaba. And it has the ending on it. Give is bida. And to your aunt. You could also say, give your aunt the books. So met is one of the ways to say aunt. And you're going to say mataho instead of matata because you and your are the same people. You and your refer to the same person, and so you have to use the reflexive pronoun. Okay. How about this one? You, plural, give 2 apples to his daughter. His daughter is going to be our indirect object. 2 apples is our object. Do save. So do save, and then is the oblique case plural ending. Bida would be singular for give, but it's plural, so bidun. In Zaholi dialect, it's bidin. In the Zaholi dialect, it's bidin. I like it's been done. Now you're going to say his daughter. Du seva bidden. How are you going to say his daughter? You can find that from your Appendix F. So daughter is kitch. We. Du seva bidden kitcha we. Okay, you do the next one on your own. Now look at 4. Tell your sister. Beja, look at Appendix F. Hoshka. Sister is hoshk. Right here. Beja, hoshka. So what is it? You tell your sister. So those are the same things. So we have to say ho. Ho. Oh, sorry. It didn't work out very well. Beja hoshka ho. Let me write it here. Beja hoshka ho. You have to use the reflexive pronoun because you tell your sister. Those are the same people. Give his daughter lessons. All right. So ders is the lessons. Quotation. Ders is lessons. And because it's in the oblique case, you have to have the ending. His daughter. Saw. Bida. His daughter. So kitch is daughter. Is the izafe. And we is the oblique case pronoun. And in this situation, whenever you have beja, say or tell, that's in quotations, acts like the direct object of the sentence. And this, whoever it is that you're telling, is the indirect object. Now, in this case, it's an izafe phrase, so it's not as obvious. But if I were to say, tell her, beja way, then this whole bit is the direct object. And way is the indirect object of the sentence. Indirect object. That's how this works with those sentences that have beja. Okay, so you can finish this. Check your answers in Appendix S. On the next page, page 86, add an oblique case ending to the bolded indirect objects in the imperatives. Check those in Appendix S. Say them with your language helper. And we're going to focus on this imperative bida. Please notice that ak and yak are endings that make it say a boy or a brother instead of the boy or the brothers. That's the difference. So again, work with your audio recordings on all of these things. 7, substitute words. Check those in Appendix S. Change the imperative. Check that in Appendix S. Work it through with your language helper. Translate the sentences. Top of page 88. Listen to the audio recordings and write the missing words. And then practice making imperatives using give, don, bitte, bitte, using Appendix F and Appendix G. After class, work on pronunciation and form some sentences with your language helper. Write them here. Page 89, work with the verb to give. Work it through with your audio recordings. All the activities are the same. Check your answers in Appendix S. Work things through with your language helpers. Work with your appendices. I cannot say often enough how important it is to work with these appendices in Book B, because that will help you to become more fluent. I've tried to make them so they're foolproof. As long as you stay in the lines, they're kind of foolproof. And then you can practice them. Now on page 92, we have this game called 4 in a row. You play this with a friend. You review your izafe and oblique case endings and pronouns using the charts. And then you choose a square. You say an imperative from here, for example. Say one of these imperatives. And then put your mark, like tic-tac-toe, only you do it. It has to be 4 in a row instead of 3 in a row. So, for example, you could say Nani. So if you're going to go somewhere in this first row, so if I want to put my mark here, before I put my mark, I have to say a sentence. So I'm going to say Nani bidda Ho. So I make a sentence that way. And then I say it in English, give the bread to your aunt. And then I make my mark. Of course, my mouse isn't working, so there's my mark. Very bad mark. So what you want to do with your friend is you want to try to get 4 marks in a row. So you can block each other by, preempting them and saying a sentence here, for example. So that's how you play this game. You make up sentences using the words that intersect in the squares. And then you can play the 4 in a row game with your language helper on the next page. At the bottom of page 93, lay pictures of your family members and friends. Page 105. Let's see what that looks like. See if I did that wrong. I mean to say on page 99. So let's go back and fix that. Down here, it should say, lay pictures of your family members and friends on page 99. Point to the items on page 104 and to the people, family members, and friends on page 99. Make imperatives. Say imperatives aloud in both Kurdish and English. Okay, I have my page numbers. They may be wrong, but in any event, you're supposed to end up with, you point to a picture of something, for example, cell phone, and you make a sentence using a relationship word. So, mobile bida kore hoshgaho. Give the cell phone to your own nephew. So the point of this exercise is to practice putting objects in the oblique case and using relationship words, which was the focus of this lesson. And we will start the next lesson in section G. Okay, hope that's helpful to you. And if you have any questions, be sure and ask me. Come say goodbye. Oh, I don't want to do that. There. Now I can just say goodbye. Okay. Sorry for the confusion. We'll get to that fifth use of oblique case pronouns and nouns in the next lesson, or potentially in 2 or 3 class lessons from now. But practice what you've learned in this lesson and use it. Practice it with your language helper and use it every day. And the more you use it correctly, the faster it will come to you, and after a while, it'll get to be automatic for you. So hang in there. This is the hardest part of Kurdish. When you get through this, it's a breeze from here on out. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next class. Bye for now.